1. So the backstory is this. For years now, my best friend Nona and myself have been having what we can only describe as flashes of memories from past lives. Most of them have been from 1600s London, around the time of the Great Fire, but some from Ireland, some from Egypt, and a few from various other places. We discovered this when we were fairly young, and neither of us have ever had any reason to lie to the other. So we took everything the other said to heart. We're usually both involved in the memories in some way, and we normally have them when we're awake, although this is not always the case. For instance, the memory this story is about started with a dream. I would like to note here that until today every memory we've had has been separate. I'm on the fence about whether I even believe in the concept of people lucid dreaming the same scenario, but I don't know how to explain this. This morning Nona sent me a text message saying she thought she'd remembered something last night, but she wasn't sure. I asked her to describe it to me, and the following message is what she sent me. It looked like it was during the Industrial Revolution. You had your hair all pinned up. I couldn't see myself except for my hands because it was from my point of view. And we were just sitting at a table in some restaurant thing right by a window, and we had ordered coffee and I saw you pick it up. And you were laughing about something, but I couldn't hear it because there was music and I was hyper-focused on that. Then a couple of boys walked in. I didn't recognize them. And we waved at them to come in, and they did. I don't know, it was very weird. All of a sudden I was immersed. It was almost as though it hadn't been her memory at all but mine, and she just reminded me of it. I could see and hear and smell everything perfectly. I didn't want to freak her out with an entire description just yet, so instead, I simply responded, did the place we were sitting in have enormous, like almost floor-to-ceiling windows? Like maybe it could have been a warehouse or a distillery or a factory at some point. Immediately I got a response, yes, and then... That's why I said restaurant thing, because the windows looked too big. Having confirmed this one detail pushed me over the edge, and I couldn't stop myself. I sent her another text. Okay, I'm probably just nuts, so correct me if I'm wrong. But I have such a strong feeling about everything I'm envisioning that I have chills. Hardwood floors, really high, beamed ceilings with bare bulb lights. We're sitting at a teeny tiny little table, you're facing the door, and the window we're next to is to your left, which means I'm facing you and it's to my right. When we look outside, there's a factory that's visible and very close to the building we're in. The boys are in either casual suits or just blazers. I can't see their faces. Your hair is pinned up too, almost like that day we did each other's hair in those loose little twists, and pinned it up in the back. It smells very strongly of coffee, and the music is kind of jazzy. The air looks a little hazy, like it's still legal for people to smoke inside. And the place where you order is a wooden bar, and there are old whiskey bottles upon shelved walls behind it. Again, instantly, yes to everything. It really is a memory. I was in shock. There was just one more thing I had to clarify, the boys. I didn't have a lot of detail considering that I hadn't seen their faces and she had, but I wanted to make what comparisons I could to try to dissuade us both from believing that this was possible. I asked her to tell me what they looked like, to her, and as I waited, I typed up a message describing what I had seen. As soon as I hit send, I received a message from her. This was my text. All I could make out was that one of them was wearing a navy suit jacket and blazer with 10 shoulder pads, and the other was wearing a dark brown one with 10 shoulder pads, and that they had light brown and dark brown hair. This was hers. One had dark brown hair and dark brown eyes, with a kind of crooked nose and a scar right above his lip on the left side. The other had lighter dark brown hair and dark green, almost brown eyes, and a few freckles. I hadn't caught their facial features, and she didn't mention their clothes. But there was one detail neither of us could deny, having seen our texts at exactly the same time. One had light brown hair, the other dark. I'm not sure what this all means, if anything, but I felt like it was strange enough. I'm not sure if I'm looking for an explanation or advice or anything at all, but I think maybe someone telling me they've experienced something similar could make me feel less insane. 2. So I work in a family restaurant that my mom owns. I work 15 hours a day, and every day I sleep during the commute to and from home. Every day without fail I get up, shower, get dressed, and wait in the car for my mom with my sleep bonnet on. I do not take it off until I get to work. Prep everything and then it comes off. I put it on a coat hook and I style my hair in the bathroom. Yesterday everything went normal, as usual. I get up, shower, get dressed, and wait for my mom in the car. Only I didn't notice she had slept through her alarm and we wound up being about 30 minutes late. In the car, just like every day, I pull down my bonnet over my eyes, shielding them from the sun so I can get to sleep faster. I distinctly remember my mom commenting on the deep indent it left across my cheeks in the parking lot. I open my camera on my phone to see, and I'm frustrated because I have this long-ass line from ear to ear on my cheeks. We walk in and we have to open immediately before prep because we were late. I drop my bonnet in my mom's office and pull my hair in a bun. She hates when we leave things all around in her office though, so I go back in there maybe a minute later to grab it. It's not there. Strange. I walk towards the front of the store to ask my mom if she moved it, but I pass by the hooks and there it is. Like it would be every morning after I take it off and style my hair. I ask my mom if she's moved it to the hook and she says no. I try to explain that we're the only ones here, how I wore it in the car and how I placed it in her office, and she just cuts me off. You didn't have it on in the car. I tell her that yes, I did, and she says no, I didn't. Obviously, this is a joke. She's trolling me. I'm not going crazy. Then I point out that she laughed about the line on my face. She's completely confused. There is no line on your face. I go fucking cold. Then run to the bathroom mirror and sure enough, no line on my face. It hadn't even been a full 5 minutes from when we got out of the car and she pointed it out. There is no way in hell that line that was across my entire face disappeared that quickly, but apparently I hadn't worn my bonnet in the car. My theory is that the sim or whatever we live in was confused by our lateness, and when the bonnet ended up somewhere it wasn't supposed to, the sim fixed it for me. Then again, wouldn't the line still have been on my face? And how come my mom remembers our drive with me without my bonnet? My mom doesn't believe me when I tell her. She thinks I just left it there accidentally the night before and was so tired I just assumed I had it. I know what I heard. I know what I saw. There was a line and the bonnet was in her office. Please tell me this occurs to everyone. I've been pondering this since yesterday and nothing I come up with makes logical sense. To clear up some questions, yes, I do work 15 hours a day. It isn't brutal work, just tedious. Our restaurant is slow because we only opened 3 months ago. Business is alright and picking up. But I have decent downtime. It's not back-breaking, mainly watching the store, restocking, and I serve who comes in. I'm fine in terms of health and I'm an adult, so clocking these hours are 100% legal. I want everyone to know that yesterday, 2 days ago now, everything had happened as I recall, how I remember it. I talked to my mom this morning about it, and that incident was the only thing that doesn't add up. I was not sleeping, or it was a dream. As an entire calendar day has passed us, I do tons of paperwork, so I must know what day it is. And honestly, between the car rides to and from home, and when I finally do get home, sleep comes fairly easy and often. Is it possible I put the bonnet there as a normal reaction? Because I go through the motions, perhaps. However, that does not explain how that deep line was off my face by the time I went to the bathroom, and does not explain why my mom tells me that I never had it on when she made an actual comment that warranted reaction. Me checking my phone camera to see the line. Also, the way our restaurant is, I would not have walked past the hooks without being at a different part of the store, a part in which I hadn't even walked through. I'm not an irrational person. If there's something that can be explained easily by memory, coincidence, or science, I will gladly argue the fact. But as I said, every scenario I try to come up with does not make rational sense. I'm trying to understand what happened, but I have no clue. 3. Please be aware the following story contains an incident of, squirrel smishing? Roadkill? I'm not sure the actual term, but for those of a sensitive nature, you may want to skip this. I've posted before about my experiences with it. I call it that because I still don't know whether it's all in my head, or aliens, or ghosts, or what. This was one of the examples I mentioned. A few people asked about it. Here's my journal entry after it happened. I'm going to cut out all the swearing and freaking out, because I really let myself go in these entries. It's better than screaming out loud or at people. but its language I would be ashamed to have anyone see. So, redactions. This is beyond anything it's ever done before. For the past week, I've been in conversation with someone who revealed they plan to start hunting squirrels. They've been through unimaginable physical shit in their life, and have reached the point where they simply don't care if they cause any other living creature to suffer. Their attitude is basically, why not? I've tried my best to convince him not to, that even if this life is cruel, that's no reason to actively make it worse. I sent my latest reply yesterday. Today I decided to take a walk. I was out on Gardenia with my headphones on. A strange pain had developed in my legs. I could walk fine, but I was very aware of every step, and I couldn't get home soon enough. Up ahead, on a small tree, I saw a squirrel. One of the little black ones I love watching so much. As I got closer, he stiffened up, watching me. A car was coming closer at the same time. I wondered what the squirrel would do. I should have stopped, but I kept on walking, sure that the squirrel wouldn't simply run out in front of the car, but he did. There was no sound, not even a thump. For the instant when the squirrel was invisible under the car, I thought maybe he dodged the wheels, but the car drove on, and the squirrel was laying there in the road. He didn't look squashed. He looked like maybe he'd get up and run away. I also worried that maybe I might have to step on him and give him a quick ending. But I kept looking, and he didn't move at all. At all. I turned off my music and walked the rest of the way home in silence. Of course, I felt responsible. I even made sure to send a prayer to the squirrel, knowing it would probably be meaningless, but there was no excuse not to. But I was sickened by how petty it had been. It had taken a life through me, and why? To prove a point? To teach me a lesson? To mock my effort to try to save some animals from a pointless death? And the very next day this happens, the very next day. This felt carefully planned. Scripted. How else to explain how the mysterious pain in my legs vanished exactly afterwards? I walked the rest of the way home quickly and without anything more than a slight normal ache. The mysterious pain was likely there to keep me distracted, keep me from thinking. It used my distraction to keep me from realizing the situation and stopping, so I wouldn't scare the squirrel into the street. It used me to take a life. I felt renewed shame and pain every time I saw another squirrel on my way home. As if it was saying, lighten up, there's plenty more. Fuck you. I have a lot more of these entries. Most aren't as dramatic. It's just computer glitches and missing time and crap like that. But this really was the point where I knew, if this is more than just pure random chance and some being made this happen, I will never forgive them. Anyone who'd take a life to make a joke is beyond redemption. 4. It is, or at least was, quite common in elementary school here to task kids with collecting acorns and making crafts with them later. It's actually so common that at the end of this acorn frenzy, parks with oaks are picked clean, and my class got right in at that ending part. So no even least worthy acorns around, and this situation was only complicated by the fact that I had a lot of health issues at the time, including myocardosis, and couldn't go for more than a couple of blocks. That's why it was like a miracle when Dad said, I know a place where there are literally tons of acorns and nobody to pick them. He led us to the Smolensky Lutheran Cemetery, which huddled between the Orthodox and Armenian ones. It was overgrown and long abandoned. There was a gas station where a chapel probably would have been before, but it was filled with oak, all massive, way over 100 years old. And there were acorns, lots and lots of them. We didn't even need to go into the graveyard itself, just picked the best acorns from the main path and its vicinity. Most of them were collected on a particular crypt, the largest acorns I've seen in my life. All in all, we didn't go through half of the main path, where it becomes asphalt from paved, that time when our bags became full with acorns. Years passed. I live in St. Petersburg, Russia, and as megalopolises tend to be, it's a bit crowded. That's when city squares and parks are not an ideal place for a kid, especially in the 90s, when there was like 2 or 3 marginals per tree. Therefore I used to go for a walk into graveyards, which at the time were much safer and prettier places. At first I went to the Smolensky Cemetery as the largest and nearest one, but then its administration changed and it has gone through renovations, which included bulldozing a significant part of its territory, topping it up with sand and using for fresh burials. Naturally, that meant that I needed a new place for walks. That's when I remembered about the Lutheran cemetery. As I said, it was a peaceful, quiet, serene place. Just perfect to stay and relax for a while. So it turned out to be a nice change in my life. Also went there with Mom from time to time. During one of such walks, we were walking along the main path when she turned to me and asked, "Hey, remember the first time we were here, when you were in elementary? Yeah, it was awesome. Never seen as much acorns as here. Then please show me at least one oak." That's when it hit me that there were no oaks around. The cemetery itself was abandoned as before, clearly untouched aside from occasional vandals, for decades, but there was not a single one near. And it was not only about one area. We searched the whole place, found one oak about 10 meters from the main path near the entrance, a couple of young trees deep inside the graveyard, and another one just near the end of the main path. Literally nothing that could result in any significant amount of acorns on the path, and especially in the vicinity of the crypt that provided us with most of them. Instead of huge old oaks everywhere, were only maples, just as huge and old. Naturally, we went to Dad and told him about that, because he was the only other witness we could think of. I should mention that at the time, the relationship between my parents was quite tense. Such a ridiculous claim from my mom got Dad very excited. All the way to the cemetery he was marching 20 meters ahead of us, waiting to prove his point. So when we actually entered the cemetery, we found him already sporadically darting from one side of the path to the other, into the trees and back, with a look of pure surprise on his face. He continued to do that for 10 minutes straight, repeating, "But there were oaks. Where are all the oaks?" over and over again. He still doesn't like to talk about it. Also, while searching the cemetery, I dug through years' worth of fallen leaves that there was no one to rake. Guess what I found at the bottom? Frames of the oak leaves under all the maple ones. And that's about it. I don't know what happened. I can't think of any logical explanation of how something like that would happen. The Lutheran cemetery has always went through renovations since then, including chopping down and uprooting of some trees, and it just convinced me that such marks can't go unnoticed. Thanks everyone who listened. I just don't want this story to fade into oblivion. 5. My aunt was only 14 when I was born, so for most of my early childhood she was my babysitter. When I was 5, I was given the privilege of getting the mail with supervision. Our street had all the mailboxes on one side of the street to make it easier for the mail companies. So our mailbox was located across the street from our house. My younger brother was only a few months old and would only fall asleep while being rocked in a rocking chair. One afternoon, I was watching through the large bay windows in the living room while my aunt rocked my brother in the rocking chair. I was waiting patiently for the mailwoman to come to our mailbox. My aunt and I had already done this several times. She watches me from the rocking chair as I crossed the street, got the mail, and come back. I went out as usual, greeted the mailwoman, watched her drive away, got the mail from our mailbox, and turned to cross the street. My aunt recalls seeing me look both ways as she taught me. I started crossing the road, but halfway I dropped the mail. She saw me bending over when she heard the horn of a truck going too fast down our country road. She screamed as she saw me getting hit. She jumped up from the rocking chair and ran to the front door 6 feet away. She knew by the time she got to me it would be too late and was crying when she opened the door. And there I was, walking up the driveway perfectly fine. The truck was down the road a bit, nothing seemed out of place. I asked her what was wrong, and she told me she had just had a bad dream and to get inside quickly. 21 years later, today I was telling her about the glitch in the Matrix stories, and she asked if I remember what happened when I was 5. I asked her what she meant, and she told me this story. I don't recall any of it. And I asked her if I could share her story. I asked a few questions to get all the details straight. And now here I am, sharing it with you. Hey everybody, Hellfreezer here, and thank you very much for listening to 5 True Glitch in the Matrix Stories, episode 109. And thank you very much to everybody who allowed me to use and sent in stories for use in this video. Well, it is a slightly grumpy Hellfreezer that greets you today. I was just checking there, it's the 22nd today, Wednesday the 22nd when I'm recording this. You guys will get this video on Thursday, of course. And I was checking on my Redbubble order there, and apparently my package was sent out on the 16th, and it should have been here by today at the latest, and the estimated delivery date. Still not here. Package of 3 long-sleeve t-shirts. Which I don't usually wear long-sleeve t-shirts, I usually just wear regular ones, but I'm still kind of being a tar monster, so I wanted to have the long ones to cover my arms. No. So, obviously I'm going to have to give them a few extra days to see if it does arrive, but usually with Redbubble I get it actually before the estimated date because they've got distributors all over the world, and these are coming from within the UK. But yeah, that's from the 16th, that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, that's pretty much a week, really. If it's not here by, say, Monday, I'll have to contact them. Well, I guess we'll see. And with that, I'm going to head off for now, so until next time, thank you very much for listening, and take very good care of yourselves.